Today's episode is sponsored by our friends at Famous Faces and Funnies, located in Melbourne, Florida. Hey, check out their Facebook Live auctions on great deals on comics and games, as well as our friends at Docking Bay 94, located in Boca Raton, Florida. Hello and welcome to another exciting episode to Codename New202. Hi, I'm your presenter, Shabu RU. So we're going to do our monthly pickup episode. And this month, we have a lot of interesting and wonderful books to showcase. And of course, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Famous Faces and Funnies, located in Melbourne, Florida. You know what? A lot of people have been telling me how they've been so happy by tapping into the Florida market. Famous Faces and Funnies not only is your place to get comics, but you get back issues, action figures, and also those like Magic the Gathering and those games. I don't know much about them, but it is a huge store and it has everything as we see right here in the clip. Now, what I love about Famous Faces is it's a small community family business. And those are the type of businesses that we all need to support. And they ship nationwide. So check out their Facebook page, check out their Facebook Live auctions, and you too can get some great deals on some kick-ass products. So why don't you go and give them a try. Now, before I dive into the books, I'm going to make a lot of my regulars have fun with this. In the background, I usually have something playing, but I'm on pause right now because I've rediscovered my love for Star Wars Battlefront 2, which I still think is one of the top 5 best Star Wars games of all time. And just revisiting this again for the past 3 days is just amazing and a lot of fun. We're going to do an episode of Late Night featuring this wonderful game. And right now I'm playing as Emperor Palpatine going through Naboo. So I'm just zapping the shit out of all the rebels and stuff. So it's a lot of fun. So we'll go through and do a future episode of Late Night featuring that game. The other announcement is that we are in Cobra Convergence 7. That's right. This will be my... this would be 4 years officially being a part of Cobra Convergence. For all of you that are new and don't know what Cobra Convergence is, it is a fan for fan, a month-long extravaganza featuring G.I. Joe Cobra, started by our good friend Hooded Cobra Commander 788. Now what's cool and unique is that every day a fan, whether they have a YouTube channel, an Instagram, or whatever, is featured. And that's the whole point. This is not backed by Hasbro. So Emily, who's in charge of the G.I. Joe division, who I like to call Rita Repulsa, because that's who she reminds me of, is not anyway supportive or a part of this. So this is purely a fan for fan. Even if you're not into G.I. Joe, this is wonderful just to see all the cool shit, cool toys, comics, anything that's related to Cobra, the villain in G.I. Joe. And just to see everybody's creativity coming up to the forefront, that's what I enjoy. And as one of the quote-unquote veterans of Cobra Convergence, it's just cool to see all these new faces. And of course, since Hasbro has been releasing the G.I. Joe classifieds, we have a lot of people jumping on board the G.I. Joe bandwagon. It's also a great way for the younger generation to kind of be exposed to this wonderful, iconic franchise. What in today's world with all the crazy shit going on, G.I. Joe is probably one of the most relevant IPs that could be brought in modern times and that would appeal to a young demographic. The core of G.I. Joe is everybody, regardless of color, race, creed, whatever, is all of these people from different backgrounds coming together and working for a greater good. Is that needed today? Yes. G.I. Joe highlights that. There's always a character for every kid to identify with. And I think that's what makes this franchise different from either Star Wars, Transformers, He-Man. And you could aspire, a young kid could aspire to be a real life G.I. Joe. You don't have to enlist in the army, you just have to be a good person. You don't need superhero abilities, you don't need nothing. You just need to have good character. That's why G.I. Joe needs to appeal to a younger demographic. So now we got all that aside, let's dive into the amazing books we're going to showcase thanks to our friends Famous Faces and Funnies. Here we go. Alrighty, so we're going to start this month right off with a bang. Now this is DC's annual crossover event. Starting in the 80s with Infinite Crisis, DC has been known for these crossover events. This year, Night Terror's First Blood is the major crossover event in the DC universe. And what's interesting is like currently we have Flash playing in movie theaters and bombing really bad, which is sad. I went to see Flash over the July 4th weekend and it had everything that could have been a great movie, but it just showed how when corporate executives meddle into things or, put their grimy fingers on anything, it falls flat on its face. There is so much to like about this Flash movie that the ending was sad. It was kind of like you knew that the corporate heads fucked it up. But a lot of this, I like the new Supergirl. She was nice. I think she did a real good job being an edgier version. It's kind of like she could have flipped and gone to the the guy from, what's that show from Amazon? The superheroes gone bad. Anyway, Homelander, that's it. Homelander, while still being a Supergirl or Superman type of persona. So that's what I like. She was a good character that could have been expanded a little bit. That would have been nice. So when you see the movie, remember that point. Anyway, going back to this. Now this is going to be written by Joshua Williamson. I don't know much about him, but the artwork is very reminiscent of Jim Lee. But even though Jim Lee didn't do the cover, but I will say his influence, he is in charge of the whole comic division of DC now, but you could see the Jim Lee. I think Wonder Woman looks absolutely amazing, and Porter is the name of the artist. I don't know much about him. Now here's the thing. 9 out of 10, these DC crossover events suck. They're not very good. But I want to go into this with an open arms and open mind too, because as much as we like Marvel's killing in the comic world, I do want the DC characters to also, they're just as important to my childhood as it is like, Spider-Man or Wolverine or what have you. So I want to go into this with the hope, and hopefully this new series, it turns out to be something extraordinary. So give this a try, and just go into it with an open mind, and we'll see how it goes from there. So the Night Terror's First Blood is set into this dawn of DC kind of story arc. So I don't know much about it. I've been reading Batman, but Batman is a totally different world for the overall DC universe. So I've been reading Batman, getting back into Batman again, as I often jump in and out of Batman as well as Spider-Man. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with this. I don't know much about the storylines or what is going into this, but let's just start off with this issue and see how it goes from here. So Night Terror's First Blood from DC, the major crossover event of 2023. So the last few months, I've been featuring iconic facsimiles of very, very iconic issues from both DC and Marvel. And all of you guys, the viewers, have really enjoyed these a lot. And I enjoy them as much because, the way what the prices are, it's tough to either acquire these books. I mean, most of us have a mortgage, car payments and stuff, so we're not going to shell out $30,000 or $10,000 on a iconic issue. It'd be nice, but let's be realistic. So these facsimiles gives us as lifelong fans the opportunity to once again hold something tangible in our hands and enjoy the comic as it should be, without the fear of devaluing or destroying some investment. I mean, really. And also, I don't really, even though I feature it a lot on this channel, but reading comics online kind of takes that one important element of comics, is that connection. When you're holding the comic book in your hand and you're reading the words, it's an experience for all the senses, if that makes sense. So I think reading things online, while it is good, it takes away from that one element. But the facsimile I want to feature is highly controversial. And I'm talking about Hulk 180, which I believe is the first legitimate appearance of Wolverine. Now, all of these grading companies and whoever these idiots are, have placed Hulk 181 as the first appearance. But here's my argument for that. And the same thing goes for Venom. Venom's first appearance, I mean, when we were kids, we all said, hey, after issue 299, hey, you see the new bad villain, Venom? Not issue 300. It drives me nuts that these modern kiddos are all pushing Hulk 300, Amazing Spider-Man 300, when it should be 299 that is actually Venom's first appearance. And the same thing goes for Hulk 180. You would never do this with the original Hulk 180, what I'm doing right now, but here you go. My argument to the court: this is Wolverine's first appearance. It has his name, he's identifying himself, it's a full panel of his likeness, and actually bubbles of him declaring to the world, I am Wolverine. So, I'm sorry, whoever is in charge of stamping first appearances or what have you, but this, to me, is Wolverine's first appearance in the Marvel world. And it's just nice. And here's the other thing. People forget about this. These Marvel value stamps, if that's missing, it's going to lower your grade or what have you, But that is the son of a gun that got me with Hulk 182. I had 2 copies of Hulk 182. One with the stamp and then one without it. The interesting is the one without the stamp got a higher grade. Are you following me here? But the one with the stamp got a lower grade. So then it becomes, what would you rather have? The one with the stamp or one without the stamp? The bottom line is the grade. So the one Hulk 182, I got a 7.0. And I featured in the last PGX unboxing that the one with the value stamp got a grade of 5 or something like that. So, again, your mileage may vary, but this whole grading thing is just, it is completely, I'm saying this as a government auditor. Like, the fact that there's no governing body that is setting a universal guidelines for everybody to follow. It's all like, oh, a little bit of overstreet.com, we follow it. But, like, what do you follow? Like, the only companies that I think that are really good, again, is EGS. I mean, that guy is a thorough grader. His grades are accurate. I mean, as accurate as you can be. PGX and CGC, I think, are in the same boat. They are hard graders. So I don't see, that much of a discrepancy between a PGX grade or CGC grade or CBCS grade. I think they're all pretty much the same, which is why I support PGX, is because of those other intangibles that go alongside. Now, Hulk 180, what I love about these facsimiles is that it is a cover-to-cover, complete, just copy of what it was. Even the advertisements, so it's kind of cool to see the advertisements. I mean, and it's also printed not in newspaper print, but in that high gloss white paper. So I think that even though I prefer newsprint, this is not bad at all either. The whites are a little bit more vibrant. Some of the colors come out better when you use this type of paper. Anyway, Hulk 180. All right, the next book we're going to feature is actually a recent trending character. He appeared in Into the Spider-Verse, their new Into the Spider-Verse movie, and he's one of those characters that I think is going to have legs going forward. You know, with Spider-Gwen, all these different variations of Spider-Man has been catching on to these young kids. I mean, I'm talking about younger kids. They seem to be connecting with these, like Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, and there's that show I mentioned during the last month's unboxing of Amazing Friends, featuring the 3 different Spider characters working together, kind of like our Spider-Man and the Amazing Friends. So this book called Spider-Man, that's it, has been picking up because this issue is going to be dealing with Spider-Boy's origin story. Now, what I've said and recommended that if you can't get the first appearance of a character, often the next best thing is either the second appearance or their origin story. So those are 2 things you could key in on during your comic pickups. With this issue being Spider-Boy's kind of origin story and piggybacking off of the Into the Spider-Verse movie, and I just glanced through a few panels, they actually refer to the movie, which is kind of cool. So, you know, that makes a big connection between different medias. So that's really cool that they're doing that. And of course, Mark Bagley's artwork. Again, there's probably nobody that draws Spider-Man better. I mean, John Romita Jr., yes, I know. But as far as like the action, like Spider-Man doing things, I think that Bagley does a really good job for Spider-Man doing that. He is aces to me. And that's like his bread and butter. So when I see a Bagley Spider-Man, I know that I'm going to get really good action sequences that he's known for. So this is definitely one to pick up and put away, and we'll see in another 10 or 15 years from now how that kind of the impact that'll have. I have a feeling that it will, because these kids like different colors and they like different Spider-Man. So I think Spider-Boy has some legs going forward. So definitely check out Spider-Man issue number 10. All right, so the next book I'm actually really excited to dive into. Now, this channel is primarily geared for Gen Xers. Now, with that said, we haven't been doing the G.I. Joe comic recaps because of the switch over to Skybound Image. Now, in our next episode, we're going to do a recap of Void Rivals. So I know a lot of these people that have jumped back on the G.I. Joe wagon have kind of been upset that there's no G.I. Joe featured in that issue. So stay tuned for that episode where I will dive into and help try to answer some of the people's questions that are not following G.I. Joe comics and kind of jumping in and kind of confused. So I'm going to try to set everything up to help those going forward. And with that said, I'm excited about this next book because it deals with another iconic 80s franchise. And my 2 good friends, Simple Tricks and Nonsense, who will be joining me in this year's Cobra Convergence episode. And they're known for their Masters of the Universe cosplaying. I think there's no better cosplaying team, and I am biased, I'm going to admit it, than Simple Tricks and Nonsense. They are awesome, awesome friends and neighbors. So the book I'm talking about is Masters of the Universe Masterverse, which is interesting because Dark Horse is handling this. Usually DC has been doing a lot of the He-Man comic books. So I picked up issue 2, and I like to pick up issue 2 because more of the meat and potatoes. Usually issue 1 is trying to set up, and I will pick up issue number 1. But in this case, I wanted to pick up issue number 2 first. I don't know much about this, but I know that being that it's Dark Horse, it's going to be a little bit more kind of grittier than DC, which is more for kids, you know. So this is going to be like an adult. I'm hoping that it's more of an adult Masters of the Universe story arc. So this is definitely one. I like this white cover, which will be a pain in the ass grading. I could predict it already. Like, you know, just you got to wear kid gloves with this one because of the white cover. So I will talk about this more maybe down the road, but this is something I definitely want to check out. And I think if you're a Gen Xer and a Masters of the Universe fan, this is something to also check out. And don't forget, PowerCon is around the corner. Go to our friends Simple Tricks and Nonsense. Their channel and their page has all the information for PowerCon in Ohio. I definitely tried everything in my power to go there and be a part of that because I missed out on Joe Fest. But I unfortunately I just don't have the time. So there's no way I could make it, sadly. But I know Pixel Dan's going to be there. Dan Larson from Toy Galaxy is going to be there. So it's kind of going to be cool. It would have been cool to hang out with the inner circle of friends that I've made as a YouTube person. But anyway, this is definitely a book that if you're an 80s kid, that you should definitely check out, just like I am. And go in, again, with an open mind and see where the hell this story takes you. All right, so Masters of the Universe, Masterverse. The next book is nothing too exciting, or my regulars know. I've been getting back into the Batman world again. I mean, I kind of stopped off around issue 100, 105, and I stopped for a while. And then I picked up again around the issue 130s. So we're looking at issue number 136, which is so far a pretty great story arc. It's like going into a dimension where Bruce Wayne doesn't exist, or people think that he did and that he's dead. So he's kind of like not, like people, like Batman is not present in this whole world, and it's being overrun by, like, I would have to say it's like North Korea. Batman has turned, Gotham has turned into North Korea, and people are like getting arrested for just looking funny, and there's no justice whatsoever. There's a law and order, but there's no justice, if that makes sense. And that's why this story arc has been intriguing to me. And Catwoman's in it too, so that's pretty cool. So Batman issue number 136. The next book should be no surprise to my regulars. People know that besides G.I. Joe, I always follow Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. So this is the latest cover variant, photo variant. Famous Faces and Funnies have been collecting these for me way back in 2018 with the first Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Same writer, our good friend David Avallone. And David Avallone is one of those writers that a lot of people don't know about, but they sure as hell should, because he's an exceptional writer. He's a good friend too. He lived in East Brunswick, which is the town next to Rutgers University. So it was kind of cool when we did that Q&A session with him several years back that we have that connection. So he knows about the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, and he's just a wonderful talent. He did that one collaboration with Kevin, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Eastman, that I think was called Paper Cuts or something like that. That was a great story arc. But the man is such a good writer that, and I've said this many times, so this is nothing new, it actually feels like Elvira Cassandra Peterson is saying the dialogue. So that's the tough task for some of these writers when they're taking a real life person and putting it into a comic book form. Is that transition? Does the words and stuff fully feel as if they're coming from the the famous person that they are putting on paper. So that's a very daunting task, and he's been acing it with these Elvira series. I think that, once again, I'm enjoying these Elvira runs because it's what comics should be. It's not about money or what's it going to be. It's just fun, and they're so ridiculous. You feel like a 13-year-old boy, like laughing at the stuff. Elvira isn't about big knockers only and nice legs. It's not about that. It's just about that, also that humor that goes with it. It's so ridiculous that you can't help but smile as you turn the page. So that's why I love the Elvira comic series. I get that feeling, especially after a hard day's work and stressed out, to just smile as you flip through the pages. That's what this series does for me. So Elvira in Monsterland. Now what she's doing is kind of a continuation. She's meeting up with all these iconic horror villains, and because of the whole legality of it, they're like Bizarro World of like Freddy will be called like Fuddy or something like that. So it's kind of like a play on words. You know who it is because it has their likeness somewhat with a twist, and that's what makes it so funny. Like, I think in the first issue, she jumps into a Bela Lugosi movie of Dracula, and the real Dracula that we met way back in Elvira, Mistress of the Dark series, comes back. So it's just funny seeing Bela Lugosi, the real Vlad the Impaler, and Elvira. That's all I need to say. Let the hijinks begin. So Elvira issue number 2, Elvira in Monsterland. All right, so we're going to wrap up this comic book pickup by featuring another friend of the channel. Now, what's cool about this channel is that since 2015, I've gotten to befriend some writers, some artists, and gotten to know, it's like, hey, how's it going? And they write back, and, I've been lucky to be friends with Jim Balent and his wife, Holly. I think, and I've said this many, many times, and if you're new, this should be something that you should pay attention to. My regulars know. I think out of the 90s, the Catwoman run that Jim Balent did, Jim Balent should have rightfully belonged in the same tier as a Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, and Jim Lee. His work, his talent alone should have put him on the same peer as those guys. But again, what's separated Jim from those guys is that he wouldn't conform to what the corporations wanted him to do. His depiction of Catwoman, as we see here, is quite different from the family-friendly DC. And I think that's awesome that he wanted to push the envelope. So Jim left DC and decided to follow his own path and be his own boss. That is the American dream. If you don't like it, and I've heard people refer to his work as pornographic, it's all subjective, but at the same time, you got to give respect for the man for sticking to his belief and doing what he wants to do. And his latest endeavor, he's a big Kiss fan, and we all know that Kiss is on their farewell tour. Hopefully, we don't know. Everyone goes on their farewell tour, and then they come back. So supposedly this is the last tour for Kiss, the band. And one of the things is Gene Simmons has recently dabbed into comic book lore once again. We all know about the famous Kiss annual where everyone dropped their blood in the ink and they printed that out. So there's Kiss DNA in every copy of the Kiss comic book. So in this case, Gene Simmons has released Dominatrix. And again, featuring Jim Balent's artwork. Jim was asked by Gene Simmons specifically to draw a cover for this comic. I don't know much about it. I don't know anything about it. But again, it's Jim Balent's artwork on a cover. And it's absolutely amazing. And that's what art is. Yes, if it's racy, what have you, that's fine. But art should be something that is beautiful to the eye. And I think that Jim Balent fully captures that, in my opinion. Any red-blooded man will appreciate. Even girls love these because it's just wonderfully done. He's very good at drawing these types of calendars. So we're going to give this a shot. We don't know if it's good or what have you, but hey, it has Gene Simmons and it has Jim Balent a part of this. So why not? What the hell? It's going to be fun, and that's what comics are all about. Not being afraid to try new different things and see where the hell it takes you. It's all fun. And with that, we're going to go into this month's Tarot Witch of the Black Rose, Jim Balent's regular that we always feature on this channel. It's one of those guilty pleasures, and you could see why. I love this cover. I think this is really cool. What Jim does is he double covers things. So there should be an image on the back. There we go. So we have Tarot, and then we have her sister Raven Hex. And need I say more? And these are great. They're another guilty pleasure. The sword, sorcery, witchcraft, and stuff. I like that shit. Like, Red Sonja, Conan the Barbarian. I mean, that's the cool thing is with comics is you could pick up and go on a different adventure every single time. You could, conquer as a superhero. You could go into a space. You could, go into the Civil War, Revolutionary War, Imaginary War, Alien War, whatever. That's what makes comics so much fun, is you could go into that world for a few minutes and get away from the normal day ins and day outs. So, Tarot Witch of the Black Rose, issue number 140. Alrighty, so that should do it for July 2023's pickup episode. I want to thank again Famous Faces and Funnies for being my sponsor and providing these comics for me to enjoy, and as well as our good friends David Avalone and Jim Balent for their contributions to comics. And this is a reminder, head over to HCC788 and make sure you follow all the amazing content during this year's Cobra Convergence 7. That's right, 7 years. Can you believe that? What started out as just one guy dedicating a month to Cobra has blossomed into a month-long event where fans, not corporations, not anything outside, are driving this month's activity. And what better way to kind of the nerddom or the fandom come together and just support one another. That's the most important thing about Cobra Convergence. It's not it's us. It's the community. The individual is taken out of the equation. It's all about supporting one another. With the world we live in today, like I mentioned, it's good to have events like this. So make sure you watch these episodes, hit like and subscribe to everyone's respected channel. It's not about money. It doesn't cost anything to do any of this stuff. So, and it's a lot of fun. You could dive into the world of cosplay, which we will be doing with our collaboration with Simple Tricks and Nonsense, as well as comic books, which I normally do, as well as action figures, toys, cartoons, movies. Everything is going to be covered this month. So with that, thank you for watching. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode where we do a recap of Void Rivals, the G.I. Joe, the new Energon Universe series from Skybound Image Comics. Have a good one, guys.